following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, Dan Rylance here, and it's campaign season again, believe it or not, and we're very pleased to welcome a gentleman this evening who's running for the 53rd Assembly District, which is the seat currently held by Cheryl Owens. Cheryl has been there forever, but has earlier this year, or maybe late last year, decided that she is not going to seek re-election, and one of our guests here this evening is going to be trying to take over that seat. There are some Republicans running, and we're going to be trying to get them on future shows. This show will be split in two, as many of them have been lately. Later in this program, we'll be joined by three folks giving us some updates on the storm damage and cleanup efforts and so forth. But for now, Jeff Mann is here, and we're very pleased that you could make it.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We usually just start out with political candidates by, asking if you're out of your mind for doing this, and and why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to kind of throw your hat in the ring?
I'd be happy to. I'm originally from the Oconomowoc, Wisconsin area, just a little bit outside of Milwaukee. Graduated in 1998. I graduated from UW-Oshkosh in 2002 with a criminal justice degree, and then I went to law school at Marquette University in Milwaukee. Graduated in 2005. Right after graduation, I began working for a firm up in Menasha, and then I had the opportunity for partnership down in Oshkosh. Came down here, and I've been practicing here for about the last 10 months.
Okay, all right. And so you're getting into politics, why?
Graduated in 1998, and it's been this will be my 10-year reunion coming up this summer. And
he's just got to make us feel old, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He just has to do this.
How things have changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
The gallon of gas when I graduated from high school was $1.12. Tuition at UW-Oshkosh was about $3,000 for a year. It's now roughly about $5,700. Health care premiums have doubled and even tripled in many respects. I have a little boy. If every 10 years we make these jumps, I'm going to need at least a second and probably even a third job. Some of our elected officials are nowhere to be found. Others have responded to the situation by falling asleep during the session. It's time for me to jump in here, grab the reins, and run with it, I think.
Okay.
I represent people for a living, and I think I can do the same down in Madison as a legislative official.
Now, you announced, this is June, you announced this month, late last month, that's much later than some of your opponents, even though they're, Republicans and you won't be facing them in a primary, they're still your opponents. One of them will be at some point down the road. Why so late of an announcement?
This is something I've actually thought about for quite some time. This isn't something I woke up, told my wife, hey, I'm going to run for the 53rd Assembly District. Really, it's just been a combination of things. Again, I have a little boy, got a full-time practice. But I think just the fact that there were no Democrats running. I think this is somewhat of a unique year. I think that there does need to be an alternative offered to individuals who, say, aren't conservative in their thinking, in their voting. And I'd like to believe that I'm going to be able to offer that alternative to these people.
Okay. Do you feel like you have any ground to make up because you have announced so much after some of your opponents?
I don't see that as being a problem. The ground that I got to make up is probably 30 years worth of ground because all the other people who are running are considerably older than me. Name recognition is going to be a tough thing to do. So I guess if there's any ground to be made up, it's probably going to be in those areas.
Well, the other thing too is that Carol Owens is a farmer, and so much of your area. I mean, I realize that you have some city and townships, if you will, but so much of it is rural area. Do you see that as, since you're not a farmer, do you see that as a disadvantage to you in any way?
Well, I guess one thing I do have going for me is I come from a farming family. While I was never a farmer, I never lived on a farm. Much of my family is from the Ripon area, and the Marquezan area. So I think I can get a pretty good hands-on understanding of some of the issues that farmers are facing. But yes, definitely reaching the rural vote is going to be a challenge, and I think any individual who expects to represent the 53rd District has to figure out a way to effectively do that.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Let's just look at this. Isn't this an odd-looking district? I mean, this is really gerrymandered.
Yeah, the audience can't see it, but it really is.
It's just, like Cheryl said, a lot of rural. Part of your district is in Fond du Lac County, right?
Exactly.
And part in Winnebago. And then you got the north part of, you got a little bit of Dodge,
a little bit of
too?
Dodgeville Pond,
Put
south
a little
part.
corner down there. Okay, but I mean, that is this district is about as Republican as Orange County, California. I mean, you can't get more Republican. You're going to run as a really conservative Democrat in this staunch Republican. What issues are important to you? I guess.
Funny you should ask. I probably am somewhat conservative for a Democrat to most. Perhaps some other Democrats would consider themselves more left-leaning. I consider myself probably more middle of the road. Okay. Big issues to me. Education's very big. Okay. Healthcare is very big. Okay. And I seem to lean more towards a Democratic philosophy on those particular issues. Okay. Because they're important to me, because I consider them the most important to me, that's more or less why I'm running as a Democrat in this election.
Okay. Now, Cheryl probably knows more about this district than I do, but this is a morally conservative district as well. I mean, where are you on pro-choice versus pro-life? Where are you on gay rights?
Those are very fair questions. Let's start with the first one. Okay. Issue of women's reproductive rights. I oppose the use of abortion as a means of birth control. Okay. Having said that, I do think that it needs to be taken into consideration the circumstances under which the woman became pregnant. Like
rape or incest?
Exactly. Okay. Also, I think needs to be taken into consideration the health of the mother. Wisconsin's abortion laws are very bizarre. Most people don't know this, but there's actually a law on the books that criminalizes abortion. However, long after that, in 1985, a second law was passed that said that no woman shall be prosecuted for having an abortion. So in essence, you had one law criminalizing it, another canceling it. So we have two inconsistencies. We have two laws that basically cancel out each other.
But we have Roe versus Wade on top.
Exactly, and that's ultimately the controlling. Right. You asked me about gay rights. Many of my clients I have represented are homosexual. Friends of mine are homosexual. And to be honest with you, I think that healthcare benefits, for instance, should be extended to same-sex couples. I think anything less is discriminatory.
How about the right to marry?
I'm more in favor of a civil union. Okay. I think I get kind of dealing what I do for a living, reading a lot of laws, getting into a lot of definitions. When I think of marriage, and I look at marriage, I think that that's still going to be between a man and a woman. Nothing really is going to change me on that. It'd be like trying to call an apple an orange. But I do think that civil unions and all the benefits of marriage that go along with it should be extended to same-sex couples.
Of course, you know the civil unions part was wiped out on the second paragraph of the constitutional amendment that passed last year anyway, so it's kind of moot.
Yeah. Now let's talk about some other issues. You mentioned healthcare and education. We have, it's no secret to anyone, a huge healthcare issue, not just in this county or this state, but in the nation. We've still got people who are not just uninsured, but underinsured. And, we have state programs that there is a segment of our population who falls through the cracks. And who simply, if they can't get insurance, through an employer or what have you, and they have certain things going on in their lives, they can't get insurance other than really, really expensive stuff through the state. but there's no state health insurance that covers them other than this very expensive policy that really doesn't cover much of anything, as it turns out. So what would Jeff Mann suggest we do?
I studied health law in law school, and I had an opportunity to speak with several experts in the field. And I've come to a couple conclusions. And I can make some nice analogies here with the legal field. You have indigents who are normally represented by public defenders. You have the individuals who can afford their own private lawyers. Then you have somebody in the middle. Okay. Now oh boy, I better get this right. The Sixth Amendment, I believe, affords us all right to representation. Pull out your Constitution, you're not going to find anything similar for health care. What do we do with it? Well, I ultimately would like to see some sort of basic universal health care coverage provided for all legal citizens. Now, having said that, I'm also cognizant of the fact that we are in the midst of a $500+ million budget deficit in this state. I think before any real ground can be made in this area, I think we have to figure out a way to effectively manage our funds. We can't be borrowing money to pay for projects of the magnitude of a healthcare. We have some problems. We have some problems in healthcare. One thing I find interesting is, I said I was from Oconomowoc. They were recently, they fought it for a long time, but eventually an Aurora Healthcare hospital was built there. Healthcare is unique in the respect that it isn't necessarily dictated by the normal supply and demand, what we're taught in Economics 101. You have, for instance, let's use Oshkosh. You have Mercy Affinity. It's doing well. It's performing all the major surgeries for local folks. Aurora comes down the street. Now they move in. Well, normally one would think, well, half of Mercy procedures will now be done at Aurora. And competition will ensue, and the prices will ultimately go down. It's not what happens in the medical profession. What happens is, all of a sudden, now you got Aurora duplicating everything Mercy's doing, plus one or two more things. Well, people start panicking, particularly hospital administrators. Nobody's going to want us in their network if we don't offer everything plus one or two more things that Aurora. So in essence, what you have is a medical arms race, if I can speak of it in those terms, and one keeps trying to do the other, and in the process drives the prices up, and is passed down in the forms of copays, premiums, and deductibles to everybody who pays health insurance. But aside from that, we also have another big problem with emergency rooms. What do you do when you wake up at 3 in the morning? 2-year-old's crying, you can't console him. You take his temperature, it's 103, and you don't have insurance. Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the emergency room, like any parent I think would. But what happens, though, is that we end up picking up the tab, again, the people who pay the health insurance, because you have individuals who don't have insurance who are using the emergency room as their primary care physician.
It's the most expensive part, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
We're down to like 10 minutes, and I want to try and get some of these other issues covered. So let me throw this one out there. As an attorney, you no doubt know that a lot of communities in the state and across the country, for that matter, have tried to, and in some cases have effectively put on their books ordinances, laws that restrict where convicted sex offenders live. There was talk at one time about doing that here in Oshkosh. I don't know that it will ever come back again, but as an attorney and as a candidate for a state office, how do you feel about such legislation?
I'm also a father, and I think that's the biggest issue. And this isn't a question that I haven't gone through over and over, time and again in my head. As an attorney, let me speak that I think that there is a rehabilitative process, involved. And I do think that part of that is a reintegration into the community. However, sex offenses are somewhat unique in the fact that there's a lot of testimony, there's a lot of research done on it that you can never truly rehabilitate sex offenders, especially the ones who prey on younger individuals. So as a lawyer, I think that we have to be very careful about telling people where they can live, where they can't live. As a father and as a legislator, well, let's start with the legislator. As a legislator, I have to speak to my constituents. And ultimately, any representative form of government, you have to find out what do you want. Are you in favor of it? Are you not in favor of it? My guess is if you polled most of the folks in the 53rd District, they would probably be in favor of passing ordinances prohibiting sex offenders from living in their neighborhoods. And to that extent, I would be required, in a representative form of government, like I believe in it, to do everything in my power to come up with legal ways to make that happen. As a father of a 2-year-old, I would not want a convicted sex offender living in my neighborhood. I can't lie to you about that. But as a lawyer, I do have those issues, and I've represented many sex offenders, and finding them not only a place to live, but a job, getting them back on their feet is one of the trickiest problems once they're released from prison or once they're even offered probation.
You also take an oath to the Constitution.
Yep.
In a way, this is double jeopardy.
Yep. It is difficult because you're going to pay for that for the rest of your life.
Well, and the bigger part of that is that so many people don't understand that to put residency requirements on the books doesn't solve the problem, because it doesn't prohibit them from working in a certain place where children may be nearby. It doesn't prohibit them in any shape, form, or fashion from sitting outside a school or sitting across the street from a park. It doesn't change any of that.
Right, and, well, let's use the town of Algoma for an example real quick. I believe this particular law has been kicked around there a little bit. I reside there and watch it. There is not nearly the law enforcement that would be necessary to watch and look out and blow whistles every time they saw a convicted sex offender in the town of Algoma. We have county sheriffs. We don't have our own police department in the town of Algoma. The city does not patrol the town of Algoma, so it's left to the discretion, left to the devices of the county. And the county sheriff, we just simply don't have enough county sheriffs to sit around in the town of Algoma and look for sex offenders. It's going to be very hard to enforce it.
Maybe we shouldn't do it then.
You know, what Cheryl and I have learned through this show that there are law enforcement people like Sheriff Mike Brooks, Winnebago County, is really
So many of them.
think this is not the way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we've beat that up pretty well. Didn't solve anything, but we beat it up. What are some of your other issues? Let's say gun control. How do you feel about that?
My wife's a police officer, Cheryl, so you can probably guess where I'm gonna come on that. I am towing the Democratic Party line when I say that and not only that, I just say that kiddingly, but I do believe that gun control, specifically carry and conceal laws, are not in the best interest of the citizens of the community. And I'm going to tell you why, real quick here. I deal with a lot of individuals who get charged with disorderly conduct, simple battery, go to Molly McGuire's, have a few too many, get in a fight. I think what I potentially fear might happen, what could happen, is that now what you have is two guys getting in a fight, one happens to be carrying a concealed weapon. Now you're taking a bad situation and making it worse. One individual gets his tail waxed, gets up, embarrassed, and says, all right, I'm going to take care of you, pulls out the 9mm and fires a couple of shots into the guy. I think that's potentially a one hazard of having, or one concern we may have if we were to adopt some type of carry and conceal legislation or laws. And also, the thing I find most interesting about carry and conceal is a lot of the people that support it are from rural areas. You got your, I think of Ashippun, Wisconsin, because that's near Oconomowoc. Rhinelander, Red Granite. I would hope that people don't need firearms to defend themselves in these communities. You don't see similar, or at least I haven't encountered similar support for these kind of bills, carry and conceal, from communities that may actually need it. Madison, Milwaukee.
Well, the sad thing is, with or without a law in the books, the law-abiding citizens are going to follow the law because that's what they do. Whether you've got a carry and conceal or not, the guy who doesn't give two craps about the law, he's not going to pay any attention, and he's still going to carry a concealed weapon.
There's probably some truth in that, but I guess there's one of the issues that everybody brings up. Well, 48 other states have it, or 46 other states, how many that is. If I see a need for it, if I thought there was a real need in Wisconsin, we needed to be packing heat to protect ourselves, I would probably support something like this. Law enforcement so far hasn't said that they feel that they see a need for it. My wife Shirley she doesn't see the need, nor does she want people to be carrying concealed weapons. And you know, I just think it could take potentially bad situations and make them worse, especially when you start entering other factors into the equation, such as alcohol.
Okay.
This state is in a bad economic mess. You know, Cheryl alluded earlier about the deficit. It could be a lot higher than, we don't know. But, you know, if you get there, you know, your choices are cut spending or raise taxes. Where do you come down on that? I mean,
This may be a non-responsive answer, but
it's okay. It's a really ugly
Spoken like
question.
an attorney.
my thoughts are this. We have a brain drain going on in this state. When I say brain drain, I mean a lot of professionals are simply leaving the state. A lot of professionals, a lot of business. One thing that I think is very important, and you don't have to look any further than east side of Oshkosh, you know, get Buckstaff, Radford Company last week. Go to Ripon, you got Ripon Foods, Ripon Good Cookies. They cut half of their staff. Alliance, I believe out of Canada, they bought out Speed Queen. One of the big things I would propose, and I push for every effort, is to get more business back and to attract it to come to the state, come to the 53rd District. How do you do that? Well, you look at certain devices, favorable tax rates, surely. TIF districts, when they're appropriate. I don't believe that they are a cure-all, but I think when they are appropriate to use them. And I think really that broadens your tax base, and I think that that's one way we can address the tax issue. I also would like to see more incentives for companies that not only come here and stay here, but then buy locally once they're here. But yeah, that would be one thought that I have on the tax burden that we have. Now, you compare it to other states. Wisconsin, we live pretty well. The infrastructure is pretty solid. We got pretty good roads. And I think that is part of the reason we have good schools. Believe me, I've been out to California before, and I've seen some of their facilities for public schools, and they pale in comparison. And I think that is part of the reason why we do have high taxes. But nevertheless, they are high, and I understand that something does need to be done. And that's just one thing. Now, the 53rd is a little more complex, because now you not only, you know, I'm talking about bringing all these businesses, at the same time we have to balance that with the rural and the farmer's right to farm. And I know a number of them address their concerns to me, where they don't want big business encroaching on their right to farm.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time, and we didn't cover too many issues, but we will have you back.
Please.
And you know what we'd like to do, we're going to have the other Republican candidates on, or try anyway, and then hopefully, what ideally I'd like to do is have you back on with the Republican opponent that you'll be facing in November.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, terrific.
Thank you so
Very
much.
good. Thank you
Good
so
luck.
much for being here.
Thank
Just
you.
sit tight.
Appreciate it.
We're going to take a real short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by John Fitzpatrick, Dave Potek, both from the city, and Linda Coleman from Winnebago County, talking about storm recovery efforts. We'll be right back.
By foot.
Run across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. If you speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
America stood for freedom, it stands for freedom, and that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today
will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
I think here we are. We're back. Everybody, notice how everybody got real quiet all of a sudden? All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us for the second half here. And as I had mentioned before we went to break, we're joined now by John Fitzpatrick, the acting city manager for the city of Oshkosh. Next to him is Dave Potek, our director of public works. And first timer on this show, as Dave is Linda Coleman. She is the emergency management director for Winnebago County, and we're very pleased that all three of you could be here tonight. You're a veteran at this. You're a pro. So.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Well, see, we like you. That's why we keep having you back.
I appreciate that.
That and Mother Nature kind of demands that we have you here. So.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, as I mentioned to all three of you, we thought it would be very helpful for our viewers to do something on, what has happened. I think we all know what really has happened, but maybe some of the things that people don't know. And then transcend into the recovery efforts and what's being done. Now, just yesterday we found out, and we're taping this on the 19th of June, just yesterday we found out that we did get the federal disaster declaration.
Right.
So that frees up FEMA dollars.
Absolutely.
So
Would you like me to start?
Sure,
Cheryl?
yeah.
Okay.
Whoever wants to jump in.
Okay.
I guess, we need to know what happens next, what people need to do, and, I have the website address and so forth, and you can give it if you want or whatever.
Well, we can certainly start with that. I think Linda, as the expert in working with FEMA, we're very happy to have had the opportunity to work with Winnebago County. They've been so helpful throughout this process, and she's the one that's really the conduit to FEMA. So maybe I should let her speak to that.
Sure. What we need to do now is citizens definitely need to call and register with FEMA. You can either do it on their website or the telephone number that you'll be promoting here. It's very important, even if residents did call my office to report their damages, they still need to call FEMA and register, or they may miss some opportunity to get some assistance, which could come in a variety of forms, whether you get some sort of financial assistance, low interest loans or grants, and some may need some temporary housing as well. So it's real important they register. Today is the first day that we've been declared, and from what I understand, we've already had 157 people register with FEMA. So that's just day one, and I imagine that number will go up significantly.
Sure. Well, and we should probably make the point, too, that just because someone registers or makes application, it is not, and they shouldn't be led into, a false belief that for certain they're going to get benefits, correct?
Right. It's for basic needs and nothing else than that. So you can anticipate that there will be a lot of questions. You'll need to come up with a lot of documents, make sure they want to see your insurance paperwork to see what kind of insurance you have. So it's not an easy process, but for some people it will be well worth it.
Okay, all right.
Will FEMA have an office in this county?
We are in the process of working right now with FEMA to determine where that location is going to be. So we'll announce that as soon as we can.
But you're guaranteed that they will be here?
Yes, we were told to look for some space for them, and we're working on that.
That will be very helpful.
There's too many people, and Fond du Lac is going through the same situation, so hopefully we'll get that secured here and get that announced soon.
Yeah, I know in 2001 when the storm came through here, like in Neenah, they set up an office for a couple of days in the Neenah Police Department, and so I'm sure that we
I
can
think
figure
that
out
still
something
doesn't
like that.
mean that citizens can't call that FEMA number or contact them on the website and get registered.
Yeah, it's probably easier on them if they call or register online instead of going to the Disaster Assistance Center. So.
Well, and why don't I just kind of give that number and that website address real quick, and then we can go on to some other things. The phone number, if you want to call, is 1-800-621-FEMA. That's 1-800-621-FEMA. And their website address is very simple. It's just FEMA.gov, www.fema.gov. So, what do we have,
that's their website.
Dave or John, for damage so far, damage estimates in the city?
The
Do we
city
know?
itself, we've just received some estimates today. I think we're just over $1 million
Okay.
in terms of our time and also the materials, the actual damages to the city itself. So I didn't think it would be that high. I was a little surprised, but we collected that information just recently, and we provided that information, I think, to some media outlets today.
And that's damage that the city has sustained, correct?
Damage the city has sustained, not just our organization, not individual homeowners.
Right, that doesn't include that. Do you have any idea? Because Linda, I know you have some estimate, at least as of yesterday, maybe today. As far as the county, do we know what the city estimate is for people and what they've sustained in damage?
Linda, I think we've provided some of that information to you. I think, was it approaching 28 million?
29 million was the last figure I received
29 million?
from just the residential and business damage.
Wow.
We are looking at countywide higher than that. I haven't been able to put those figures together yet because FEMA was in town for residential and individual assistance. So what we're doing now is putting that public sector package together, and we received those figures today of about $1 million from the city, and we're over $2 million for public sector countywide.
Well, and again, that doesn't even include the people who didn't maybe have damage but had to spend man-hours cleaning up and bailing water and so forth.
And you're
So-
not including schools like Lourdes and UWO? That would be
That's included in the $2 million.
It is, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about retention ponds for a minute, because Dave, when you and I talked, and of course you've been talking about West Haven for a few months at least now, I think you were quoted in the paper as saying that having the retention pond, is it retention or detention?
It would be detention.
Okay, all right.
You're detaining the water and holding it for a period of time and then allowing it to drain to the river later.
Those two, they're always confusing to me. So anyway, because they're kind of the same.
They are similar.
They're kind of the same. So anyway, okay, a detention pond. You have said that having the one out in West Haven would probably have helped in this particular case. I mean, it wouldn't have stopped any of this really from happening, but it could have helped a little bit. Explain, if you could, how it would have helped.
Okay, and if I could back up a little bit, you have to understand that there's two different systems. There's the sanitary sewer system that takes the waste from your home or your business, and it takes it to the wastewater treatment plant down on Campbell and Dempsey, and that's treated, and then that goes into the lake and into the river and into the lake. The storm sewer system is considered a separate system. Those typically drain right to the either the lake or the river. We have only one pump station in the city where actually the storm water comes into a pump station and it has to be pumped out into the lake, versus like a Fond du Lac who has many, many pump stations. We have a lot of gravity lines that are able to drain right into the lake. But as far as a big picture, what you have to understand is they said the amount of rain, they measure storms in intensity, and they call it either they can call it a 5-year storm, a 10-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 100-year storm, and that is just a percentage. So a 100-year storm means there's 1/100th of a chance of it occurring. And so that's a 1% chance it could occur in a year. You could have 5 100-year storms in a year. Just because you have one 100-year storm doesn't mean you're not going to get another one for 100 years.
Right.
That's not the way it works. It's just 1% chance. On the other hand, a 1-year storm, you have 100%, 1 over 1, you have a 100% chance of that any year you're going to have a 1-year storm.
He loves that math stuff.
Yeah. You don't want to go into the 500-year thing.
No, we don't ever want to 500. But anyways, what you have to understand is our storm sewers are designed to handle a 10-year storm. And so, and in many cases, because we're low and we're flat, the lake levels change, and they actually, the Corps of Engineers raises the lake, and it surcharges our storm sewers. We don't have capacity in our storm sewers. So even though it's supposed to handle a 10-year storm, if you get a 50-year storm or a 100-year storm, you're going to have street flooding, and that's when the two systems get interconnected, because if you have water sitting on the road, it's going to try to go somewhere. So if there's a crevice in a street, a crack, and it can get under the base and go into a sanitary manhole, Or, you know, if people had bad luck and there was water in their backyard, came in a window, it goes in their floor drain, it's trying to go to the wastewater treatment plant instead of trying to go to the river. So it's just a big picture of how the two systems work. Now, in the case of West Haven, that's only one area of the city, and that's called the Campbell Creek Drainage Basin. We have many, many drainage basins across the city, and what I think I said to the newspaper was, for the Campbell Creek Drainage Basin, we actually have 3 solutions. We're working with the National Guard to build a detention basin on their property off of Osborne. We're talked to the school district about creating a detention basin by Tippler School. And then lastly, we're looking for some area to create detention west of Highway 41. Okay. And for Campbell Creek, that 1,000 acres of the city, if all of those 3 ponds had been in effect, we would have been trying to hold water for a 100-year storm. It definitely would have had less water flooding people in their neighborhoods, on their city streets, and that sort of thing. But, you know, obviously there's always going to be some water on the street. The less we can have, the better off we are.
Sure. Well, you know, there's some critics out there who have been saying, well, you know, because of the way the water was flowing and this, that, and the other, that this just would not have done any good. But you're saying, no, this would have helped.
Well, and it would have helped, and you have to understand that we're coming up with a program. The DNR has actually several requirements for us to take care of pollution in stormwater. So right now in your wastewater, we can't discharge that water to the river until it's been treated to a certain standard. And wastewater, what they're saying is that you can also, you need to get rid of the gravel, the grit, some sort of amount of sediment and pollution that's in the stormwater before it goes to the lake. That's a new requirement. The only way you can really do that is to have it go into a detention basin. Well, there's 2 ways. You can be like Milwaukee. Milwaukee tries to take all their stormwater and all their wastewater to their wastewater treatment plants. They have these huge tunnels. They try to store the water and treat it as they have time. Well, obviously, you can't make tunnels big enough to hold this sort of storm, and so they have problems. But we are considered separate systems, and so we try to have the stormwater go to the lake, have the wastewater go to the wastewater treatment plant, and that, you know, it's trying to meet the DNR rules.
A couple questions, common ones. One is, there's a detention or retention pond over by New York by the railroad tracks.
Yes.
People in my neighborhood don't understand why it was empty.
It hasn't been hooked up.
Hasn't been hooked up, okay.
Right.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, wait a minute now. So it's not working yet?
It was just built this spring,
okay.
And it's in the process of being seeded. We need the grass to be growing, because if we had hooked up a bunch of pipes to go in there, all the topsoil would have eroded out of there. So we have to give it a period of time, say 6 months or something. We will be working on the sewers to connect to it this fall and next year. But we need a period of time for it to create the grass so that there's not erosion.
Thank you. Is it illegal in this town to have your sump pump drainage going to the street?
To the street? Some pump drainage can go to the street.
Okay.
It should not and is illegal to go to the sanitary sewer.
Okay.
So that's clear water.
Okay.
It actually, you know, in some areas of the city there aren't storm sewers, so people have no choice but to just pump it over their lawn or out into the street, and then it can work down the curb and gutter till it gets to a storm sewer.
Final question. There are blue bags all over the terraces. When are you going to start picking those up again?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I was hoping we would have an opportunity to talk about that, because there is...
And that's not criticism, I'm just asking.
No, I don't take it
as... Dan.
There's a 2-week moratorium on collection of recyclables, so the people that put out their blue bags this week have to just take them back in their garage and wait till the next cycle, and next week there will be no paper collection.
Okay.
So all the crews that are used to work on recycling are now concentrating on picking up the storm debris.
And I guess I could add to that, Dan, you know, when we were dealing with the storm and we knew that we'd have a lot of damage from the homes, you know, we tried to put our heads together and tried to figure out a way where we could maximize the pickup.
Right.
And one of the things we thought about was the idea that if we could get more vehicles out on the road, if we could get more staff out on the road, we could pick up more of the refuse.
And you're doing that.
We are.
You cleaned my neighborhood out this morning.
Well, we're not.
No.
The guys out on the
No,
street.
no, but I mean, you know, but it's working.
It is, and we thought that, you know, rather than focus our efforts on some of the recycling, we thought it was safe for those folks to just retain that in their garage, and then focus on more of the storm drenched stuff, some of the stuff that might have had sanitary sewer backup, to get rid of that, get it out, and reduce the possibility of any public health issues. So we got our heads together, made a decision. Hey, let's just do that, and then the 30th, I think, we'll resume normal operations. Isn't that correct, Dave?
So we're going to air next
30th.
week. So next week there'll be no paper pickup, and the following week there'll be no. blue
No,
bag.
the following
week it'll start
Oh,
again.
following, so what? Just
June
one more
30th
week.
we'll be back to
Because we're to the end of our first week.
That's
Gotcha.
our
And,
hope.
and if I could say, I know that people don't realize how hard this work is, but I truly appreciate, there's a lot of employees in the city that are really working hard, but there's crews out there picking up all this debris, and it's not just the sanitation division. There's a bunch of employees from the street division that have also gone over to help with the collection, and I think they're doing a great job. I ask for people's patience. We're doing the best we can, but it's really hard work, and I appreciate all
And
their
they're
hard
not
work.
picking up little paper, little plastic.
No,
They're picking
it's
up
a lot
huge,
of stuff.
heavy
Pretty heavy
things.
stuff.
Yeah.
And we've provided some statistics in some of these other programs that we've been able to share information on, but just to give you an idea, I think ordinarily they pick up about 40 tons a day. That first day that they were picking up some of the storm damaged stuff, it was, I believe, 93 tons, something like that. The second day, I talked to Bob Horton, I think it was 275 tons. I think they had another over 200 ton day today. So just from those first 2 days, you know, if they broke it down to pounds, they were almost at 1 million pounds of stuff. And we have, I think, 10 trucks out on the road.
Right.
And they're working 12-hour days. Those guys are really trying to do the best they can for the citizens, and
Well-
we do appreciate folks' patience.
Well, and I think really, you know, all of you are to be commended, and your staffs, because you know, this was a tragedy, and you know, when Mother Nature is going to do something, she's going to do it, and there's not a whole lot that we can really do to avoid it. But I think that everyone has just put forth really tremendous efforts, and you know, done a yeoman's job in getting things accomplished. You know, you guys utilized the city Channel 10's website, Channel 10's station, the radio station. You know, you utilized everything to get word out to people.
And it was current for those 2 or 3 days.
Oh yeah, there were
Continually
hourly
changing.
updates, and then updates as needed. I think one came through about 12:30 in the morning or
Even the
something
background
like that.
music was good on this.
Yeah. So you know, you're all to be commended, and I know you guys,
Thank you,
you
Cheryl.
know,
Yeah,
get
appreciate
beat
that.
up working in the public sector a lot. Maybe not you so much, Linda, but
Not
these
yet.
guys, these guys do, and we've kind of beat them up from time to time.
We
But-
look like it too. Maybe Dave more
But,
than me.
you know, I mean, when a job has been well done, people should say that. And
Thank you.
so, as a citizen and a taxpayer, I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Cheryl, can I comment on that?
Certainly,
I
go
have
ahead.
to tell you how great the city did in communicating with Winnebago County. You know, we don't have a lot of relationships, you know, we don't spend a lot of time talking. This is the first time I actually met Mr. Fitzpatrick, and they opened their emergency operations center, and immediately the communication began between the county and city. They were so cooperative, and because of that communication, I think the citizens received really great service, much faster, I think, than other communities that are experiencing the same disaster right now. But they put in a lot of hours. We met over the weekend to discuss how are we going to handle garbage. Everybody came in. They did a great job, and I think the citizens should be really pleased with the staff that the city did.
Sure. Well, what about in the county? Now, obviously, you know, we have city services here that we pay for. In the county, is there anything that the county does to help people in the more rural areas, Linda, or does that kind of fall on their own individual villages and townships?
Well, what we did with the garbage pickup, for an example, is the county took over the administration of the whole garbage pickup of it, and we met again with the city, but we offered the same services to all the townships, and it was their choice if they wanted to sign on, but we took on those administrative costs, and we offered it, and I believe the towns are accepting the same proposals, and they're working on it as well.
Wow.
One of the things we are working with the county still on is the pickup of white goods, appliances, refrigerators, washers and dryers, and those sorts of things. We're working on a cooperative purchasing arrangement with the county. So we're hopeful that we can get to that soon too. I know that people may want to just get that stuff out of their basement too and get rid of their stuff so they can just move forward. But there are some things that we need to take care with that aren't accepted at the landfill. So even if they put their stuff out there and they had an expectation that we could take it, we just couldn't. You know, like for example, there's Freon and there's motors and some of those washing machines. You know, there's oil, and you know the landfill will just not accept those things. So there has to be some actions taken before we can actually get to that point. I know folks are anxious, but we're hopeful that through our efforts with the county, we'll be able to come up with a program to pick up those goods, and then also deal with the hazardous materials too.
Yeah, we're still working on that issue. And a special thank you to John Raby from the Solid Waste Department, who also made a really great effort to get this situation taken care of. We did have a citizen that brought in live ammunition. Right now the landfill is not taking that. So right now we're just taking the garbage, the things on the curb. Hazardous materials will be announced at a later date, and so the white goods as well, when we can handle that.
Well, and if you guys can get us press releases, we're always happy to put it on the website.
Absolutely.
Too, for
Thank you.
Going back to detention ponds, I was given a little note before we started this tonight. One suggestion, and Dave, you probably are best suited to answer this, but one of the suggestions was, EAA constantly wants so much from the city or the county. Is it possible that maybe they could in turn give some land back to the city, or sell it to us for $1, so that we could maybe put a detention pond there? Or would that, is that location suitable to help?
Well, actually, the EAA has some ponds in front of their museum. I don't know if they have ponds behind their museum, but I know they have some in front of their museum. And they do provide some stormwater management with those ponds. My understanding of the EAA is a lot of the property around the EAA is county land. And so that's really, there is a creek, I believe it's called Glatz Creek, that kind of drains to the east of the airport, and it goes across Oregon Street, and it goes across Fond du Lac Road. There was some problems in that area, and when that drainage way doesn't work properly, it floods 20th Avenue. So there's going to have to be some review by the county on how the drainage is coming off the airport, but I think more of the, say, impervious area is really related to Winnebago County and their airport than it is the EAA.
Okay. And I know when Frank Tower was on here a couple months ago, John, were you on that show with him?
I don't think I was on that particular
Okay.
one. I know I was on a show prior to that.
He talked about some other detention ponds that are planned around town. And I'm assuming from hearing you talk earlier that they are in areas other than the Sawyer Creek Basin. Where else are some ponds planned?
Okay, so they actually, we were talking kind of about the golf course, the Tippler and the Armory. That's Campbell Creek. Another area is the Sawyer Creek Basin, which is kind of to the northwest of that.
Okay.
And then there's Stringham Creek, which drains through South Park down to Ohio Street, and then goes in a storm sewer box culvert down to Morgan's. There's another area that floods. They talked about the airport. There's bigger drainage areas on the south side of the city because there's more land that's coming from outside the city or to the far city limits that has to drain all the way to the river. But even on the north side of the city, we have problems, and on next Tuesday when we have the workshop with the council, we're kind of going to step back and give a big picture of the 15 other ponds that we're looking at. You know, you talk to people in Fond du Lac or in Appleton, they have some of those systems up already. We only have, I don't think we even have 5 regional detention basins yet, but with these DNR requirements and our flooding problems, you know, we're going to be branching out over the whole city, and that's what we'll be talking about with the Common Council on
And
Tuesday.
of course, those cost a lot of money and they take time, you know, so.
Well, I think that was an excellent question to bring up, though, too. And as Dave said, you know, folks, I think, fix on the West Haven Golf Course option, but there really are a variety of areas that we need to work on that are in a variety of those different basins. And we're just really beginning to work on some of these issues. And I think one of the challenges the city of Oshkosh has is a lot of the areas of those basins are urbanized. So it's difficult to find open land to be able to work on these. And if we don't have those open land areas, then we have to acquire people's properties, and that's going to make it even more difficult. Though some of the other communities, I understand from my discussions with Dave and our stormwater folks, have reserved a lot of their drainage ways. I believe Milwaukee did some of that with parks initially, and so they were maybe in a little better position to move forward with some of these new regulations and some of the plans that are necessary. Whereas a lot of our areas are urbanized and they are contained in storm sewers. So that makes it much more difficult for us to work on some of these issues now.
But a very good example, the earlier question about the detention basin on New York, we had to buy 2 homes and we had to move 2 families. And that just takes time because, you know, you follow the state law and you follow the process, and they have rights, and it's right that they have, you know, the opportunity to do what's the law allows for them. So we have to follow the law.
Linda, from a county standpoint, you know, have you seen some structural damage the way we have in, well, Fond du Lac has seen it, but the way we've seen here in Oshkosh?
Yep, we did have some damage like that in the Pickett area, unfortunately, where there was one home that actually had field water, some crops that had gone right through their upper level of their home or their main floor. So there was some serious damage done in the Pickett area. Fisk Fireworks sustained about $25,000 worth of damage as well. And then we continue to watch the Eureka area and Omro area, Delhi, Island View Road out there, and they're still experiencing it right now. So we're in 2 phases. We're in recovery here in Oshkosh, but I'm still in response out in the township. So it's been busy.
Well, I think, you know, Oshkosh, Fond du Lac, and then some of the smaller areas like Ripon, you know, Montello, those communities, those little burgs kind of got hit pretty hard too.
They did, and we have a great communication link with Green Lake County, which really helps my office because we hear what's all coming down the Fox River into those areas, and that communication link has been so important to keep us ready up in the Omro area.
Well, sure, and with the water in the Fox River, the way it flows and so forth, you know, it is good that everyone be communicating with each other, even if you're, you know, 3 counties away or whatever. So.
I'd like to return to FEMA for a sec. My hometown of Grand Forks, North Dakota in 1998 experienced a 500-year flood, and 27,000 homes had sewage up to their first floor. So I called a couple people, one this morning, one last night, and they have 2 bits of advice for dealing with FEMA. This is not to preach. One is document, 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 photograph, photograph, photograph. And the other caveat is that very often the first level FEMA person will say to Linda, yeah, go ahead, fix it, we'll pay for it. A week later, that goes to his superior, or supervisor, and he said, well, I'm not so sure about this one. Or it goes up another level, and he said, I'm not so sure about this. The University of North Dakota is still trying to collect bills from FEMA 9 years after the flood, when the initial approval was given by the FEMA person. So it's not a panacea. I mean, it's a bureaucracy, but, you know, document, 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 photo for anybody is really good advice.
Absolutely. And you'll find that once they start dealing with FEMA, my office steps out, except for the public sector portion. We'll continue to work with all the municipalities that need to be get some money from FEMA, and that will come through us. But definitely, citizens should be taking pictures, document, keep receipts, everything, and you'll work directly with the FEMA representatives, and that's true.
All right. Dave, I want to come back to you because we hardly ever get you on here. We get to take advantage of this opportunity
we'll
here.
do ponds entirely, right?
That's right. That's right.
He loves this stuff, though.
An hour on ponds.
He lives for this.
Well, two things real quickly. I know that the folks in West Haven had started a petition drive to stop the city from doing that particular pond out there. Since this has happened, have you heard from any of those people? Have they changed their mind? Are they still moving forward?
You know, I believe our city attorney has been talking to some of those people, but we in engineering really haven't in public works. So that's more of a legal
I just thought maybe
issue.
you would know kind of what the
No,
status
I'm
was.
sorry, I can't give you
Well, you got out of that one.
Okay.
Let's see if you can handle this one. Somebody approached me this past weekend and said that what we need to do is replace our pipes that we have with bigger pipes that can carry more water. Now, obviously, there's a tremendous expense involved in that because it's not just redoing all the pipes, it's redoing the roads, and there's all kinds of expense there. But, is that even a possibility in some of the areas where they flood more frequently than others?
And actually, that's a good question. We are typically looking at our stormwater management to include stormwater detention basins, but also pipe upgrades where it makes sense. So some of these plans, like the Campbell Creek plan, have both of those aspects of them. We're not just building ponds, we're also making sure the water can get into the ponds and then the water can get out of the ponds. So there are both of those aspects with stormwater management. But in many cases, for instance, the pipe that goes out of South Park, to remove that pipe or enlarge it through all those developed areas, it really makes sense to try to hold the water back because you're exactly right. By the time you either buy homes or to get you enough room to put more pipes in, or you rip up the roads, put in the new pipe, you really are almost the same, or many times you're more expensive to do it the piping way. And then with the problems we have with the lake, with our capacity, sometimes you don't even gain enough capacity by running more pipes to the lake because if people don't really understand it, the pipe that goes, for instance, from South Park all the way to the river, the river backs all the way up to South Park. If you can believe it, it's just in a pipe, you don't see it.
Yeah.
And that's how deep the sewer is, and that's how far with the elevation of the lake the water can back up. So that reduces the capacity of your storm sewer because if it's already filled with lake water, it's not going to take any rainwater. So
well, and we got hit so bad. In fact, I mentioned this to you yesterday when we talked. It's kind of like a bathroom sink. You've got the little hole that water overflowing will go into, but if you've got your taps open as wide as it can possibly go, it's going to spill over onto your vanity in the floor. So
right. That's a good example.
Anyway, thank you very much again for being here. And one more time, the FEMA number is 1-800-621-FEMA. The website is www.fema.gov. So thanks to all three of you. We really appreciate it. And yes, keep up the good work. Thanks for everything you've been doing. Yeah. So. And thanks to Dan and the crew, and we will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.